Oh, Dick. What a brave thing to do. Uncle Quentin listened in the utmost amazement. He had never had much liking or admiration for any children. He always thought they were noisy, tiresome, and silly. But now, as he listened to Julian's tale, he changed his mind about these 4 children at once. "You've been very clever," he said. "And very brave too. I'm proud of you. Yes, I'm very proud of you all. No wonder you didn't want me to sell the island, George, when you knew about the ingots." "But why didn't you tell me?" The 4 children stared at him and didn't answer. They couldn't very well say. "Well, firstly, you wouldn't have believed us. Secondly, you are bad-tempered and unjust and we are frightened of you. Thirdly, we didn't trust you enough to do the right thing. Why don't you answer?" said their uncle. His wife answered for them, in a gentle voice. "Quentin, you scare the children, you know, and I don't expect they like to go to you. But now that they have, you will be able to take matters into your own hands. The children cannot do any more. You must ring up the police and see what they have to say about all this." "Right," said Uncle Quentin, and he got up at once. He patted Julian on the back. "You have all done well," he said. Then he ruffled George's short curly hair. "And I'm proud of you, too, George," he said. "You're as good as a boy any day." "Oh, father," said George, going red with surprise and pleasure. She smiled at him and he smiled back. The children noticed that he had a very nice face when he smiled. He and George were really very alike to look at. Both looked ugly when they sulked and frowned, and both were good to look at when they laughed or smiled. George's father went off to telephone the police and his lawyer too. The children sat and ate biscuits and plums, telling their aunt a great many little details they had forgotten when telling the story before. As they sat there came a loud and angry bark from the front garden. George looked up. "That's Tim," she said, with an anxious look at her mother. "I hadn't time to take him to Alf, who keeps him for me." "Mother, Tim was such a comfort to us on the island, you know." "I'm sorry he's barking now, but I expect he's hungry." Well, fetch him in, said her mother, unexpectedly. He's quite a hero, too, we must give him a good dinner. George smiled in delight. She sped out of the door and went to Tim. She set him free and he came bounding indoors, wagging his long tail. He licked George's mother and cocked his ears at her. Good dog, she said, and actually patted him. I'll get you some dinner. Tim trotted out to the kitchen with her. Julian grinned at George. Well, look at that, he said. Your mother's a brick, isn't she? Yes, but I don't know what father will say when he sees Tim in the house again, said George, doubtfully. Her father came back at that minute, his face grave. The police take a serious view of all this, he said, and so does my lawyer. They all agree in thinking that you children have been remarkably clever and brave. And George, my lawyer says that the ingots definitely belong to us. Are there really a lot? Father! There are hundreds! Cried George. Simply hundreds, all in a big pile in the dungeon. Oh, father, shall we be rich now? Yes, said her father. We shall. Rich enough to give you and your mother all the things I've longed to give you for so many years and couldn't. I've worked hard enough for you, but it's not the kind of work that brings in a lot of money, and so I've become irritable and bad-tempered. But now you shall have everything you want. I don't really want anything I haven't already got, said George. But father, there is one thing I'd like more than anything else in the world, and it won't cost you a penny.